An Alabama basketball talent destined for college drops dead on the court due to heart complicated failures. We will be talking about that. Of course, we will not be talking about certain medical procedures you cannot talk about on YouTube, but we'll go over what's happening there and what to think about some of this and where we go with that. In other news, Americans hit $1 trillion in credit card debt. But don't worry, everything is fine. Things are wonderful, and that's all going to get paid back. We'll analyze a bit of what that means, where that goes, and what happens in the future for that. The DOJ has appointed David Weiss as the special counsel in the Hunter Biden probe. We'll be talking about that and what that means, and, well, the distraction of that as well. And Donald Trump gets a protective order. So we'll talk about what he can and can't talk about and what this means for the campaign. It is going to be all of this and more, plus a bonus things I like and things that I hate segment tonight, because we weren't able to get to it last night because of time constraints. But strap yourselves in, grab a snack, get some friends, let's get some live chat going on this Friday night. And as always, I will survive. And as long as I know how to love, I know I'll stay alive. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. I always give the warning when I'm going to be a little bit low energy, but I don't know if it was something I ate last night, which might have been an entire cup of ready-to-eat cookie dough while I was breaking keto fast, and not even realizing that I'd eaten the entire cup until it was pretty much gone. And I'm not talking like a tub like that. It's like a little drinking glass size cup, but I think that might have been the culprit. But somehow, however, I went to bed last night at a decent hour, 11 o'clock, after having a wonderful interview with Brew over at Unfiltered Brew. So that was awesome. But about 1 o'clock, I woke up and got violently sick for like the first time in 10 years. I couldn't remember, and I thought about that while I was trying to get back to sleep last night. Like, when was the last time I actually got sick? And I was thinking, like, maybe when I was getting hammered all the time after my third fiance left me. But not even that, no. I was able to maintain myself throughout all that. I can't even remember, but I bet you it's been a good 10 years at this point. But yeah, it happened, and I lost 2 hours of sleep over it, so I may be a little bit low energy yet today, but we've got a ton to go over. We have an absolute full stack. Part of that is things that I like and things that I hate, our bonus from last night. Thank you for bearing with me, by the way, as we welcome our audience into Unfiltered Brew. I've got to work with her because I'm actually going to be posting both of the episodes I've done on Unfiltered Brew to my Spotify, but I need to, because I took a recording of the one, and it actually had to be edited because of a family situation with her. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about that. But there was that end of that, so I need to get the audio for that one. And then I forgot to hit the record button last night, so I got to get the audio from last night too. But those will both go up on my Spotify. No video, but you guys can go check that out. And thank you again for having me on. That was awesome. But we do have a lot to go over here today, so we've got the credit card debt. We've got the Alabama teen. We do have the Sam Bankman-Fried news. I do have that up on the stack for the day. So we'll be talking about that later on. The distractions, of course, of the dueling indictments and criminal probes into the dueling presidential contenders. I honestly, with everything else that's happening in the world, I think that a lot of that is a distraction and doesn't have a lot of merit because like, it's a foregone conclusion. Everyone's going to try to put one in jail, and the other one, maybe not so much. Although, as I did some more thinking about when I was looking at the credit card debt thing, it kind of dawned on me that there may be a point where a lot of this doesn't come to. I'm talking like Biden, man, already. You can tell I'm low energy. No, there may be a point where a lot of this comes due, but it probably won't be until into 2024 when a lot of the crap hits the fan, which means that whoever gets elected president at that point, maybe even into 2025 at this point, is going to be left holding the bag. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about Bankman-Fried, Joe Manchin, a bunch of other stuff here, and some stuff that we had left over from earlier on in the week over here on Contemporary. So get yourselves in, strap yourselves in, get a snack, get something to drink, and thank you guys for joining me on a Friday night. You could be anywhere in the world, but you chose to be here. And those of you listening on the rebroadcast or the audio platform, thank you as well, because you are the true champions. And with that, let's actually get into the news. Get started. Before we do, of course, make sure you guys go check out great programming, such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silentcaster, Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine, and Overruled with KTZed. KTZed is actually doing a competing stream with me right now on Crimeland, so unfortunately, we had a little bit of a cross path there, so go check all of that out as we aim to bring you a better news and culture experience from the common man, for the common man. That's right. Stop getting your news and your culture from people who hate you and wear suits that cost more than your house. Get your news and culture from people who are just like you, who have to make the same decisions that you do every day. And with that, let's get into it. Let's get started. And we're going to start, as we always do, with the finance. Which, by the way, will dovetail nicely with talking about trillion-dollar credit card debt. So, definitely. All right, let's get started. Let's get the live chats up here. Over on the Rumble side, a couple people watching over there. Feel free, by the way, to get in here. I react to live chat as we go, so there's that. Oh, one other thing, by the way, before I do get into the news, going back to who you should all check out. If there's anybody out there that you think would have an interesting story on a specific topic, start getting that out to me. You can tweet at me on Twitter. Make sure, of course, because I am still small time, until we start to grow the channel a little bit, that it's somebody who's attainable, somebody I can reach to. But tag that person and tag me so I know who to reach out to, because that's, and I'll give a little bit of sneak peek onto what's happening with the new show that I'm working on here. It's I'm working on doing something like halfway between the Joe Rogan Experience, where he just goes off the rails and talks about whatever, and Bridget Fettisy's, the one that she does with her husband that's on a specific topic, but where they don't really have any outside banter because they're married. So we already know, we've established that they know each other, and the conversation, it's the same person all the time. So I'm trying to get something a little bit between there where we have a topic, but I still want to banter with the people. So if there are people that you want to see me talk to and a topic, don't forget to tag a topic in that as well. Let me know, and let me know so I can follow that person and get to know that person as well. And let's get into the finance. What do we got here? Mr. Scott says, I found a 6-pack of Busch Light that's in the peach flavor. I had to break the boycott. Yeah. Busch Light, by the way, even though we're in Wisconsin, and we have, I mean, over on this side, we've got Leinenkugel's, Pabst, and on the other side of the state, we've got Miller. Probably one of the most popular beers in this state for such a long time was Busch Light. And when the boycott came, I'm like, what's going to happen with this? But a lot of people are looking past the Busch Light, so we have that. Mr. Scott, say it isn't so. It's only 4.1% alcohol, so I think I'll probably be good to chill on YouTube. Nice. Mogwai reminded me of the song, of course, the classic anthem from Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive, the classic breakup anthem. Mr. Scott says, better song than usual. Blame it on the Solar Flares, yeah. The peach beer is pretty good. Said, War, Damn Eagle instead of Roll Tide. I don't know enough about college ball to know that. Mogwai says, does that mean at first Jadger was afraid and petrified? Yes. I have been afraid and petrified before. Stolen song lyrics. No, the balloon thing got so dated, and I used that for so long. I said, you know what? We're going to mix things up, and I'm going to do a couple bars, but spoken word from a song at the beginning of every show, and see who recognizes it and who doesn't. I got $1.50 tacos on Mondays and had the runs all week. Ooh, F in the chat. Although typically cheap tacos, especially if you find them from an ethnic vendor, are pretty good. So there is that. Mr. Scott, Sleepy J after. Yeah, I'll be crashing here pretty soon as we get done here. Sure, I'll give you energy. Takes the phone back. Go the fuck home, Lindsay. Alright, let's fire this up here. On the Dow today, the Dow spent the day up after starting off in the futures down. And, well, pretty much throughout the entire trading day did stay up. It was a little bit of a roller coaster, but it ended up on 100 points up on the day, 35,281.4 points, or 105.25 points up, about 1/3% on the day, with a few things elevating the Dow through the day, and I believe this gives the Dow another winning week. We'll talk about that with IVD at your Bitcoin. That unfortunately declined today, losing $18 on the day. So it almost broke even. If it would have gone just a little bit longer, it probably would have broke even. But at $29,406, that is down $18 even, or 0.06% on the Bitcoin. So you're pretty much sitting where you were yesterday at this point for that. Your gas prices in the Madison area are climbing again. The 370 at the Quick Trip, which is the dominant gas station franchise in the area, is holding, but some of the others are starting to climb above. Now the Shell is holding at 350, thank you, and we do have one Quick Trip that has jumped to 380, with the BP jumping to 380 as well, but it looks like gas prices are on the rise. So if you do have a chance and can go and top off your tank, now is the time to do it before it gets much higher. We will continue to watch this and see where this goes. Of course, remember, this is not official financial advice. But I mean, you know how to watch gas prices. So, and always check your local listings, because these are not your local listings. This is the pattern of one specific market, and watching the changes of one market year over year, month over month, and day over day. Your finance article today comes from IBD. Dow Futures, market rally not broken, but Nvidia and Tesla flash sell signals from Ed Carson. Dow Futures will open Sunday evening along with the S&P and the NASDAQ. The market rally had a mixed week, but the action was generally negative, with resurgent treasury yields and mixed earnings weighing on growth. The NASDAQ fell through the 50-day and 10-week moving averages during the week. Tesla and Nvidia are decisively below their 10-week lines. Nvidia stock's decline is especially important, as it's the leader of the AI-led market rally. The S&P edged lower, but found support around its 10-week lines Friday. The Dow Jones bucked the trend, edging higher. The market rally really is in danger of falling into a correction, but it's not there yet, arguably. What's happening is the uptrend is diverging, while the techs arguably are in a correction. Industrials, infrastructure, housing, and energy sectors are holding up or gaining ground. Part of that is the infrastructure bill, by the way. So are some retail, travel, medical, transportation, and financial names. Arista Networks, Tenaris, Visa, SLB, Lennar, Martin Marietta, Delta Airlines, Flowserve, Lululemon, and JP Morgan Chase are all setting up or holding up. Meanwhile, Cardinal Health, Kava Group, Home Depot, Stone Co., and On Holding are trading around buy zones with earnings due this coming week. Home Depot being on there, by the way, is a little bit of a surprise to me if it's on holding, or I mean if it's in or around the buy zone right now, because the thing with Home Depot is people are not spending the money there right now, or any of the home improvement stores, because they're waiting to see whether or not it's time to unload on their house because they're going to lose anything, if it's time to run out and buy, or what the economy is going to do. We're in kind of a precarious spot for home improvement. Still, investors should be thinking defensively on the current market environment. Tesla, Nvidia, and Martin Marietta are on the IBD leaderboard. SLB is on Swing Trader. Tesla, SLB, Applied Materials, and Annette are on the IBD Big Cap 20. Flowserve was Friday's IBD stock of the day. So we will not get any futures action until Sunday. That is your finance report. Your layoffs report today coming from the Missoulian. Large Missoula company announces layoffs and permanent closure, from David Erickson. a company that makes dietary supplements, is planning to shut its Missoula location at the end of September and has given layoff notices to scores of employees. That's 20 at a time, by the way. Elite One Source, located at 1001 South 3rd Street West, employed local workers to manufacture dietary supplements and other custom products as of October of 2021. The company reported having 120 local employees, including managers, chemists, cleaners, and product blenders. Earlier this year, the company announced a merger with a Florida company called Ion Labs, and the new company was called Ion Nutritional Labs. Now the Missoula factory is being closed, and almost everyone is out of a job unless they're offered an accepted position in Florida. It is with deep regret that we're announcing to close our Montana operations on 30 September 2023, said Greg Menke, who is the CEO of Elite One Source Labs before the merger and now has an upper-level position with Ion Nutritional Labs post the COVID-driven surge in consumer demand for nutritional products. In the U.S., the market is experiencing a correction as consumers, retailers, and brand owners adjust their stock levels. The decision to cease operations in Montana has been extremely difficult, and we are supporting our employees through this closure and transition. So, and I mean, this does go in a couple different directions, especially for Montanans. One thing to keep in mind, now 160 employees does not seem like that's that big of a number. Keep in mind, Montana in the entire state only has right around 1 million people. So 160 jobs in one market in a state like that it's a fairly big chunk. And I mean, that's income that's coming out of just the store. It's the income that's coming out of the support shops that go with that, like the people that go to the convenience store to go pick up a soda on their way to work, or the restaurants around the area. And I mean, that it just has a ripple effect, especially when you take the full business out of the community. And the people who are going to, as they say, get offered and accept a job in Florida. Think of what real estate is doing in Florida right now. That was one of the biggest go-to destinations from people fleeing California and New York. Moderate temperate climate, good tax rate, expensive real estate, obviously, especially as more and more people did it. But now you're coming from Montana, which has probably one of the, as far as I understand, one of the lower tax rates for property in the country, and definitely one of the lower costs of living to one of the highest costs of living in the country. So we've got to put that into effect with it too. So none of this is really good, unfortunately. So that's what we see for that, unfortunately, for these people and the town of Missoula. I hope that you guys can come forward, and I know that you'll survive, and as long as you guys know how to love, we know you'll stay alive. So that's what we see coming from that. All right, let's talk about credit card debt. From CNN, we've got things going on over here. Well, what's this greatest economy in history? Praise the Biden. Sarcasm isn't helpful to the manifest destiny. I really think people start saying things like the oppression of the white man is over since 2020. People would just start believing it. I mean, that's basically how it works. Well, there's a lot of things that happened in the past few years that's how that worked. Mogwa says, I should have changed that stupid lock. I should have made you leave your key, but I couldn't due to high lock prices. I forgot too, because I haven't listened to Gloria Gaynor's version of that song very much because I don't really care for disco. But I love Cake's version of that song where, of course, because they're edgy and it's the 90s, it's I should have changed that fucking lock. I should have made you leave your key. If you looked at the few lockpicking lawyer videos, you could just rearrange the pins and file your key. Fair. All the rich people moved to Florida if they could. Yeah, I've got family that did that, actually. Florida is a warmer climate and batshit crazy people. It's Montana, but hot. Well, I mean, I say some of that, too, about Wisconsin. I mean, if you guys have never been here, and I do recommend that you at least come in and visit and spend 2 weeks here if you visit. We've got the southern hospitality in Wisconsin. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of in this state. Unless you're in inner city Milwaukee, we've got the southern hospitality. But we have a winner. I call it Tennessee with a winner. All right, from CNN Business, Americans' credit card debt hits a record $1 trillion, from Alicia Wallace. Americans' credit card debt levels have just notched a new but undesirable milestone for the first time ever. They've surpassed $1 trillion, according to data released Tuesday by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. During the second quarter, credit card balances shot up by $45 billion, or 4.6%, to land at $1.03 trillion. Whoa! I have way too much hair to do that, and I know I'm pushing 40, you guys, but still, this doesn't work unless clean cut, bald, and can laugh like Mike Myers. During the second quarter, credit card balances shot up by $45 billion, or nearly 4.6%, to land at $1.03 trillion, according to New York's latest quarterly report on household debt and credit. Rising credit card debt and auto loan balances helped to drive overall household debt levels up 1% to $17.06 trillion. For the quarter, the report showed overall household debt spiked $2.9 trillion. Since the end of 2019, before the pandemic, the New York Fed's debt balances are nominal and not adjusted for inflation. I will admit that my credit card debt did go up just this year because, moving across the state is expensive. It is. And I'm glad that I did grab that second card because it wound up keeping the roof over my head until we got everything back into balance. And now it's work to get that paid back down. Rising credit card debt and auto loan balances help to drive overall. Well, we read that one. These increases are coming at a time when interest rates have quickly vaulted to a 22-year high. And that's the other end of it, too. It's like when I got both my credit cards, I will admit that I had piss poor credit. I had bad credit at the time. I had the identity theft still hanging over my head. So I do carry what is at the time a high interest rate. My interest rate is average right now, and it hasn't changed. It's actually average to low when I look at credit cards that are being issued now. I'm not going to give the number, but under good economy, it was really high. And now we're at the point again. The interest rates are going up, so now it's medium to low. It's insane. People are taking out more credit cards on a higher rate than what I got when I had bad credit. Partially because of the prime point. As interest rates feed through the federal funds rate to interest rates on mortgages and credit cards that affect everyday consumers, Sophia Bay, an economist at decision intelligence company Morning Consult, told CNN. So, with elevated interest rates, paying that debt becomes more expensive. And with consumers continuing to take out more debt, the combination will put more pressure on some households who have those tighter budgets. The average credit card charges a near record 20.53 interest rate, according to Bankrate. No, that's a low rate right now. 20.53 is a low rate right now. Credit card balances have risen for 5 consecutive quarters, increasing at some of the largest rates in 20 years. An analysis of the New York Fed data shows, unfortunately, it's only going to go up from here. Matt Schultz, chief credit analyst for LendingTree, said in an interview with CNN what's driving its inflation, higher interest rates, and just generally how expensive life is in 2023. Although the labor market is strong, bullshit! And the economy is growing, and consumer spending is increasing. Persistently high inflation, coupled with spiking interest rates, have weighed down consumers, especially those who are not among the 14 million homeowners who refinanced during the pandemic, locking in ultra-low interest rates and extracting $430 billion in the process. Earlier on Tuesday, Bank of America reported that more people were tapping their 401k accounts because of financial distress. Which means, of course, that they'll be working much further into their 70s and 80s The number of people who made hardship withdrawal during the second quarter surged from the first 3 months of the year to 15,950, an increase of 36% from the second quarter of 2022. But don't worry, everything is fine. While hardship withdrawals being made by a tiny fraction of the overall plan holders is another indication that cracks may be forming in households' financial situations. There's plenty of data that shows people are doing really well, their debt compared to their expendable income is okay. Delinquencies are low and unemployment is low, Schultz said, but there's only so much hard debt that people can handle before delinquencies really spike. New delinquencies continue to decline from recent historic lows, according to the latest New York Fed report. So let's talk about this for everything that it's worth right now. Number one, the big thing to think about with this is the spending. Now, when the prime rate is low and you can get credit card rates for 10 to 13%, and unless you're like super 850 credit score and have a buttload of money coming in, they don't typically get much lower than that. Mine is much higher than that, but again, the numbers were not good when I took out both of the credit cards that I have. It's amazing that I'm floating around average right now, having taken them out with sub 600 credit. I can't believe that for a second. But with what I just said, and that being the case, when people, number one, are getting new credit cards and putting the debt on them at 20+% interest rate, it's not because they're doing well. It's because it's the only way they can think of that they can get by at that point. Which, I mean, if you listen to Dave Ramsey, you should never put food or living expenses on the credit card to begin with. I mean, that's why we're $33 trillion in debt in this country to begin with. Because we keep putting our expenses on the credit card. Oh no, we raised the debt limit. It's to pay for the obligations we already have. Yeah, that's a problem. It's not about spending, it's about the obligations that we already have. You're putting your living expenses on a credit card. And you shouldn't be doing that, but people are doing that more and more because they have to. And now I'll be fully transparent about this. I won't be transparent about most of my finances, but I'll be fully transparent about this. Two of my streaming services go on the credit card, and one of my podcast expenses goes on the credit card. So I have 3 expenses recurring that go on the credit card. Because of the fact that it's a rewards card and I get 1% back on that. If it wasn't for the fact that I had moved and had to take care of that, a lot more of that would be on there. But to have that recurring 1% coming off things that I use every month helps, and I can use that for vacations and crap like that. So I'm using that as a bit of a savings account, but for the most part, if I am using one of the 2 credit cards, it's to go back and buy something that will make value. I don't use them at the grocery store. Except for the couple times when I first moved that I was completely destitute and I had no other choice. So I understand where these people are coming from and what's happening with this, but the reality of it is this is a problem. Now, if I came out and I heard on a 0% prime rate and most people having 10 to 13% credit cards, that this was high, you know what, I would be thinking, okay, we're doing investment. People believe that they can go back and pay this off. They're doing a home improvement. They're doing a big project and things like that because the economy is fantastic and everybody's flush with cash. That is not the case right now, even though the Biden admin will continue to jump onto every social media platform, and from what I understand, even though I don't have television here and I rarely ever listen to terrestrial radio, every regular media platform, and tell you that the economy is fantastic Best economy in years. Mogwai even pointed it out in the chat. We could talk about the Mega Millions because I saw some more stupidity about that earlier on. We'll talk about that at the bottom of the show. There was some major stupidity with that. On the $1 trillion, they are not factoring in auto loans and home mortgages in that. That is just credit card debt. So they did bring in mortgages and auto loans in this. Where was it? Overall household debt is 17.06 trillion. That's where they have the auto loans and the mortgages into. So no, this 1.03 trillion is just credit card. So this is not good. But again, if the propagandists can tell you what they want to tell you, everything is fine, and stop thinking about it. There are tanks too. You stomp them. Oh, the palmetto bugs. You stomp them, they give you the finger and run off. Gotta stomp and drag. 20% is usury. Really bad. Yep. It's okay, I'm going to hit that scratch off with a Powerball. Gambling is an idiot tax. Yeah, we talked about that on Unfiltered Brew last night, actually. Mogwai says, Mr. Scott, yes, but oh my god, the lines at the service station when that Mega Millions or Powerball is high. Yeah, that's the idiot part of the idiot tax. I only buy tickets if it hit the day before. In theory, that maximizes my chances of winning because less people will buy a ticket. That doesn't change your chances of winning, actually, because of the way they pick the numbers. It does increase your chances of not having to share the jackpot if you hit it, because I wouldn't be surprised if like at least 2 or 3 people hit that Mega Millions. Well, although they are saying it's just one. So that's what we have for that. Let's talk about Caleb White. Disclosed TV with the announcement just in. Star Alabama basketball talent Caleb White dead at 17 after collapsing during a workout. With ABC News to bring us the report. Alabama high school basketball standout dies following medical emergency from Meredith DeLisso. F in the chat, of course. Because no matter what you believe about certain medical procedures we can't talk about on YouTube, or what you believe about the particular community that this person came from, or anything else of what you might believe about any of this, it is tragic when young people die. Well, it says trillion is high, but 20% is Graham's expenses on certain leather and whip fun. Let's read what Meredith DeLisso had to say. A star Alabama high school basketball... I'm going to talk like Biden again, man. God, I need to get some more sleep. A star Alabama high school basketball player died after suffering a medical emergency at his high school, officials said. Caleb White, a senior at Pinson Valley High School, was pronounced dead after being transported to the hospital on Thursday, officials said. The medical event occurred around 1:12 p.m. local time, and the 17-year-old was pronounced dead a little over an hour later, according to the Jefferson County Coroner/Medical Examiner's Office. A post-mortem examination will be performed on Friday to help determine the cause and the manner of death, the office said. Pinson Valley High School principal Michael Turner notified families of the incident in a letter on Thursday night. Life-saving efforts were immediately started, and the first responders were called to the school, he said. Please know counseling resources will be available for anyone who needs them in the coming days, Turner said in the letter. Please keep the student's family and our school in your prayers. Pinson Valley High School is located in Pinson, a suburb of Birmingham. Pinson Mayor Joe Cochran said he was heartbroken by the student's death. I was honored to know Caleb personally and loved the spirit he carried, Cochran said in a social media post. Life is fleeting and enjoy every day as the treasure it is. I know Caleb did. So, and again, cause? Not so much. I mean, they're coming back and remembering a person who was, at the time, probably a no-name. Like, this is a person who had the great potential to come back and be somebody who's going to be in the Final Four at some point. Somebody that we talk about when we go back and make our brackets. He had the potential to do that. One of the things that I'm going to point out about stories like this is, and I got to be really careful with my words and skirt around the medical procedures we can't talk about on YouTube side of things, because I don't know what the people... You better not cut my power. Let me finish the stream at least. By the way, there is a major thunderstorm that's headed this way, but it's not supposed to be here until 8 local time, which will be hopefully right about the time we're finishing up. I don't know what it is that ABC believes about the medical procedure that we can't talk about on YouTube and how this would relate to this, but there's a reason that this story is going nationwide. The mainstream media, this, in any other universe, this would be a local story. At any other period in history, this would be a local story and would not make it outside of the Birmingham area. The Birmingham local papers would come back and talk about it. They would, they'd have an article, they'd have an obituary. The kid would probably make front page news for having passed away tragically and suddenly in his youth. What is it that people want to talk about on social media more than anything? Their opinions on what the government did, especially with certain mandates, again, of things that we can't talk about on YouTube. When they put stories like this out here, and again, this would have been in any other time period, nothing but a local story, something that we wouldn't have talked about, but this is a semi-high profile person who did this in front of a bunch of cameras. And now we're starting to have the argument, and I saw it on X earlier, of whether or not a certain medical procedure we can't mention on YouTube is involved into this, with people at each other's throats once again. A story like this is not put out there because ABC wants you to feel sorry for some local kid that nobody had heard about outside of the state of Alabama. It's to divide and get people into situations, especially on more censored platforms, where if they go back and talk about that certain medical procedure, you're out, you're banned. Unless you wear a beanie. I'm sure that when Tim talks about this, he'll be frank and candid, and he'll use the V word and the C word. No, not those B and C words. Get your mind out of the gutter. And he'll use those all over the place on this video, and he'll mysteriously, with totally not having Vice money, not get flagged or taken down for it. But I do, regardless of what they're doing with this is a tragic event. It's a person who did not have to go this way, regardless, and shouldn't have had to. And it's always tragic when young people die. So, F in the chat for this person. From Alabama.com, Pinson Valley High School star basketball player Caleb White dies after a medical emergency at the school. Now, and of course, this is still probably a little bit bigger range than what it normally would be, but this is a more appropriate outlet for something like this. A Jefferson County High School basketball standout died Thursday afternoon. Pinson Valley High School senior Caleb White suffered a medical emergency at a school. Life-saving efforts were started at the school, and White was transported to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. The incident happened in the late morning. Principal Michael Turner announced the student's death in a note sent to parents, which was later shared with media. Turner said counseling would be available to students and staff in the coming days. White's grandfather, George Varnado Jr., posted on Facebook that his 17-year-old grandson collapsed while working out with the team. Caleb was an honor student, very respectful, highly intelligent, excellent role model, phenomenal basketball player, ranked in 25th best point guard in his class in the nation, and number 2 in the state of Alabama. Rest in peace, Caleb, Barnadoe wrote, "I love you, man." The 5'11" White was one of the 3 finalists for Class 6A Player of the Year as junior and was the first team All-State selection. He was averaging 20.9 points, 3.8 rebounds, 3.1 assists, and 1.9 steals for the Indians, who mysteriously haven't had to change their team name yet. And again, this being out of Alabama.com, out of a local outlet, this is a much more appropriate, much more expected article than having ABC National News cover the death of, again, somebody that we don't know. Nobody's ever heard of before this. The last one I'm going to do on this one here, because I feel like there's some cope going on with this. Local affiliate ABC 3340 News says, taking a closer look at the effectiveness of athlete physicals after Caleb White's sudden death. Just want to make sure that, we didn't get knocked off when we had that little flicker of light up there. I can hear the thunder. I can't feel the thunder or chase the lightning from the sky, but I can feel the thunder. If you can make that connection, you are awesome, by the way. 17-year-old Caleb White died Thursday after suffering a medical emergency at Pinson Valley High School. White was a senior at Pinson Valley and also played on the basketball team. At the time, the cause and manner of his death have not been determined. It does raise question if physicals given to youth athletes are thorough enough to detect risks before the athlete steps on the court or the field. We have the standard physicals that are taken. They go to the medical doctor and have to be cleared. We did check the latest physical records of this young man, and he was deemed healthy, clear, said Superintendent Dr. Walter Gonsulin. The physical Gonsulin refers to includes a set of questions, which includes asking about family history, chest pains, and shortness of breath. Doctors also listen to the heart during the exam. UAB Dr. Irfan Asif, who was certified in family and sports medicine, said the physical is also an important test, but in general it may not always be the best way to detect underlying issues. It certainly is a tool to get you in front of the doctor and help get your annual checkup, which is important, Asif said. That being said, there are other tools that might be better to detect heart problems in athletes. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's really effective, Asif added. If you look at studies, it turns out that most people don't have warning signs prior to a cardiac arrest. Really? So those symptoms we ask about, unfortunately in 80% of cases, the first symptom of having an issue is having a cardiac arrest. Asif said if he recommends a regular EKG screening, but he noted no screening program is 100% effective. And again, I feel like this wasn't a problem until recently. And if it wasn't getting reported on national news. But that is what we have for that. Let's talk about the special counsel. And we're going to start with the press conference from one Merrick B. Garland. Benny Johnson tweeting out, breaking, AG Garland appoints David Weiss as special counsel into investigation of Hunter Biden crimes. Let's listen.
With the Department of Justice regulations governing such matters. In keeping with those regulations, I have today notified the designated members of each House of Congress of the appointment. In February 2018, after being nominated by the former president and confirmed by the Senate, Mr. Weiss was sworn in as the United States Attorney for the District of Delaware. Mr. Weiss had been a career prosecutor, having served previously in the office for more than a decade. Beginning in 2019, Mr. Weiss, in his capacity as U.S. Attorney and along with federal law enforcement partners, began investigating allegations of certain criminal conduct by, among others, Robert Hunter Biden. That investigation has been recently referenced in federal criminal proceedings in the District of Delaware, and as noted in those proceedings and other public statements by Mr. Weiss's office, that investigation remains ongoing. In February 2021, U.S. Attorney Weiss was asked to remain as U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware and, in that capacity, to continue to lead the investigation. As I said before, Mr. Weiss would be permitted to continue his investigation, take any investigative steps he wanted, and make the decision whether to prosecute in any district. Mr. Weiss has told Congress that he has been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including the responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges, and for making decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of any prosecution consistent with federal law, the principles of federal prosecution, and departmental policies. In a July 2023 letter to Congress, Mr. Weiss said that he had not to that point requested special counsel designation. On Tuesday of this week, Mr. Weiss advised me that in his judgment, his investigation had reached a stage at which he should continue his work as a special counsel, and he asked to be so appointed. Upon considering his request, as well as the extraordinary circumstances relating to this matter, I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint him as special counsel. This appointment confirms my commitment to provide Mr. Weiss all the resources he requests. It also reaffirms that Mr. Weiss has the authority he needs to conduct a thorough investigation and to continue to take the steps he deems appropriate independently, based only on the facts and the law. Mr. Weiss will also continue to serve as U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware. As special counsel, he will continue to have the authority and responsibility that he has previously exercised to oversee the investigation and decide where, when, and whether to file charges.
So, we have a special counsel in this. There are a lot of people that have a lot of questions. Now, one of the things that I will point out and remind people that Mr. Grassley and Mr. Graham, when the investigation was first being talked about, thought that Mr. Weiss was the gold standard, the person that needed to be, and the only person who really could be the special counsel for this. And now they've all seemed to back off that position here, so we'll be talking a bit about that. One of the things to point out, whether or not they thought that he was the gold standard on this or not, is the fact that a special counsel should be somebody who is appointed from outside the government. Technically, Mr. Weiss wouldn't apply, although because they're doing this as a... No, he's a federal prosecutor. He would still be from inside the government. I'm not 100% sure how they got around that. I know a lot of our legal scholars over on Twitter are telling us that it's because that's just a regulation, that's not a law. Well, I mean, wouldn't you want to follow the regulation if you were especially the Attorney General? But we'll be talking a bit about this and what's happening here. Let's grab one from NPC News. A.G. Garland appoints a special counsel in Hunter Biden probe. From DeRay Gregorian and Ryan J. Riley. U.S. Attorney David Weiss was appointed special counsel in the ongoing probe of the president's son Hunter, A.G. Garland announced on Friday. Weiss will be responsible for the ongoing investigation of President Biden's son, as well as for any other matters that arose or may arise from that investigation, the Justice Department said in a statement. That was Garland. That's what he said in that speech. By the way, again, I want to remind you that the top prosecutor in this country speaks as weakly as that. Like, that was a weak-voiced speech. Weiss, who had already been overseeing the Hunter probe and is based in Delaware, agreed to be appointed special counsel on Tuesday, but Garland agreed it was in the public interest to do so. The AG said. The move was announced shortly before the prosecutors from Weiss's team revealed in a court filing the plea talks over tax and gun charges against the president's son had broken down and the case would likely go to trial in California or D.C. Later on Friday, prosecutors suggested they could bring different charges against Hunter in a new case. Which, by the way, given the fact that his last name is Biden, if the trial does take place in California or D.C., he walks. The ultimate argument, of course, is that you shouldn't be moving people around and changing venue to put them in prison, because the goal should always ultimately be to keep people out of prison whenever possible. But I will point out also the fact that Hunter Biden, from the prosecutor side, cannot get a fair trial in either one of these districts. Later Friday, prosecutors suggested they could bring different charges against Hunter in a new case. The DOJ noted that Weiss was nominated by then-President Trump in 2017 and confirmed by Republican-controlled Senate in 2018. Garland said the appointment reinforces for the American people the department's commitment to both independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters. In a statement, Hunter's lawyer Chris Clark said, whether in Delaware, D.C., or anywhere else, we expect a fair resolution on behalf of our client. Which means that the judges in all three of those districts have already been informed that if they ruled the wrong way, they're going to suddenly get a deep bout of depression. He said Weiss has diligently been investigating my client for 5 years and has proposed a resolution, which we fully intend to pursue in court. It is hard to see why he would have proposed such a resolution if there were other offenses he could have successfully prosecuted, and we were aware of none. We are confident when all the maneuverings are at an end, my client will have a resolution and will be moving on with his life successfully. I actually agree with Hunter's attorney, but for different reasons. So the investigation begins. Will anything come out of it? We don't know. From the Hill, the DOJ moves to dismiss Hunter Biden case to bring new charges from Ella Lee. Prosecutors investigating Hunter's tax-related charges say a trial is imminent after a plea deal negotiations fell apart last month. David Weiss, the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, moved to dismiss the case against Biden in a new court filing so prosecutors can bring charges in D.C. or California. The president's son was set to agree to plead guilty to 2 tax offenses and enter a pretrial diversion program on a gun charge. By the way, a gun charge that would have given any of the rest of us a nickel, allowing him to avoid a formal charge under specific conditions. But the deal crumbled after a hearing last month when a Delaware district judge put off accepting the complex deal negotiated by Biden and the DOJ. After the hearing, the parties continued negotiating, but reached an impasse, Weiss wrote in court filings. A trial is therefore in order. After the hearing last month, both parties were directed to submit in writing their responses to Judge Mary Ellen Norieka's concerns. On Friday, the Justice Department asked Norieka to set aside those briefing deadlines. The court's briefing order is premised on the idea that the parties intend to continue towards guilty plea in criminal action number 23 MJ024 and diversion on criminal action number 23 CR 00061, prosecutors wrote. But that's no longer the case, they said, following additional negotiations after the hearing held on July 26, 2023. The parties are at an impasse and are not in agreement on either the plea agreement or diversion agreement. Therefore, the government believes the court's briefing order should be vacated. And yet, I am going to remind you again that nothing is going to come from this. The Mogwai says, I would trust the... That's another word that's tricky to say on YouTube. because they will algorithmically devote your channel if you do say that word. An SS guard. We'll say that. I would trust the SS guards that oversaw the prison camp and Hogan's Heroes than the people overseeing the Hunter investigation. I have not ever seen Hogan's Heroes. And I didn't realize it was a World War II Germany themed thing. I'm aware of it. I've heard of it. I thought it was a motorcycle thing, like from the 60s. I'd have to look into that, actually. We've got one from the New York Times, a former newspaper. Naming Weiss special counsel, the Hunter's case doesn't change much. From Charlie Savage. One oddity about A.G. Garland's decision to give special counsel status to David Weiss, the Trump-appointed U.S. Attorney for Delaware, who's been leading the investigation into President Biden's son Hunter, is that both Mr. Garland and Mr. Weiss have already said the prosecutor was empowered to act independently. That means making Mr. Weiss a special counsel may be more of a cosmetic gesture, essentially formalizing what has already been the case than a new reality. The AG's move came against the backdrop of accusations by Republicans that Mr. Weiss has offered what they portrayed as a sweetheart plea bargain to the younger Mr. Biden because of political manipulations. Mr. Garland, or by Mr. Garland, rather, or by the White House, functionally, the formation of Mr. Weiss's independence could serve as a shield against such accusations. Not completely. A special counsel is a prosecutor who wields the same powers as a U.S. attorney, but is granted a broader day-to-day independence from supervision. In making the announcement, Mr. Garland reminded the public that he had already said Mr. Weiss, who was appointed by President Trump, was operating outside the normal system of hierarchical oversight and control for the Hunter Biden case. Discussing the decision to keep Mr. Weiss on to complete the Hunter Biden investigation in February 2021, after the Biden admin took the office and most Trump political appointees resigned, Mr. Garland noted, "As I've said before, Mr. Weiss would be permitted to continue his investigation, take any investigative steps he wanted, and make the decision whether to prosecute in any district." He added Mr. Weiss told Congress that he has been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including the responsibility for deciding where and when and whether to file charges, for making decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of any prosecution consistent with federal laws, the principles of federal prosecution, and departmental policies. So that's what the New York Times has to say about this. Basically saying, hey, he's been this all the time, so what's the difference? Obviously, my first thought in this is, what's their angle? Because I can't help it when I look at this White House. It's good. It has Richard Dawson on it, too, before he became the Family Feud guy. It reminds me of... you guys have seen Mallrats, I hope. One of my favorite movies. A movie I have some history with in the school system. But when Brody was up on the stage, and the host came out and was, I think, starting to question whether or not everything was going well, and Brody says, hey, Richard Dawson, why don't you go back up there and ask the questions until it's time to host the feud? But that's what the Times have to say. Looking at some of the opposition to this at this point, from The Hill, Lindsey Graham, choice of Hunter Biden special counsel doesn't pass the smell test. From Alexander Bolton. Senator Lindsey Graham says the elevation of U.S. Attorney David Weiss to serve as a special counsel in charge of investigating Hunter, the president's son, doesn't pass the smell test, sugar. I'd love to get some of that to smell. Given the plea agreement Weiss negotiated with the younger Biden earlier this year fell apart under court scrutiny. AG Garland granted Weiss's request for a broader authority to investigate Biden after negotiations with Biden's defense deal over a plea agreement on tax and firearms charges stalled. As a special counsel, Weiss will not be subject to day-to-day supervision by DOJ officials, but he will still have to comply with the department's regulations, procedures, and policies. The designation allows him to file charges in any jurisdiction. You know, Lindsay was smelling all over it, just saying, says Mogwai. Graham, the senior Republican on the Judiciary Committee, however, said the elevation of Weiss falls short of what was needed to fully investigate Biden's business dealings, given the plea agreement that Weiss negotiated earlier this year, which wouldn't have required Biden to serve any time in prison. Sugar, the plea deal arranged by Mr. Weiss's team was the biggest sweetheart deal, and I know a man when he can be a sweetheart, in the history of the American legal system. To allow the same team to continue to investigate potential financial crimes involving Hunter Biden and others doesn't pass the smell test, Graham said in a statement. So, my question, of course, and I am going to push back on the Republican side of this, by the way, the same way that I push back on the Democrat side, who thinks that Eileen Cannon shouldn't be allowed to prosecute the Trump case. Who should? And my question for Lindsey Graham would be, if he would ever to hear this, is who should be the special counsel? Give me a name. Give me a name and tell me why this person can be uniquely objective in something like this. Why you would trust this person's special counsel appointment over David Weiss, who you all praised months ago. And I'm not saying this to down you guys either. I do want to see investigations into the Bidens because I do think that there's the connection. I'd like to see somebody find that so we can figure out why suddenly Democrats and Republicans are working so hard together to try to eliminate one man from their ranks when they called each other's commies and Nazis for years and years on end. So give me a name. Who could be a good special counsel? Remember, this is somebody who should be independent of the government, although, according to, again, our legal scholars over on X, the Everything app, it's just a regulation, it's not a law. But that is what we have here. I do have one video before we go on to the Trump stuff that popped up as I was, I went to go make the Twitter announcement that we were live, and I found this video and I said, yeah, we got to put this on here. I have not seen the video we are about to look at before, ever. I saw that it was there, and I snagged it up. I read what Calesto wrote for the caption, and I said, okay, we got to figure out what this is and talk about this. So Chuck Calesto tweets out, just in, major witness Flips comes forward to testify against Biden's at impeachment hearings on Biden's family criminal activities. Although I'm to the understanding that we do not have an impeachment inquiry yet. I don't know if that changed while I wasn't looking, but as far as I know, we don't have an inquiry yet. Let's listen.
To hurt the country, and now your dad is president. Here's Jonathan Turley.
We've heard this drumbeat recently that the media is now acknowledging that, sure, Hunter Biden was selling influence and access, but it was an illusion. There's no proof that Joe Biden got an envelope full of money or a direct deposit to his account. Therefore, there's nothing here. Democrats have constantly said, stop asking questions because you don't have that type of direct evidence of benefits. Well, that's just ridiculous. All of these payments benefit Joe Biden. It's going to the Biden Family Fund. You know, Joe Biden is 80 years old. He's worth at least $8 million. He's not going to spend that. People at his age, his wealth, are largely preoccupied during these days with leaving a legacy for their children, for their grandchildren. This was a great benefit in that sense.
So it's an interesting story. If you'd like to learn more about the backstory about that picture, go to foxnews.com and
Click on it.
A couple of things. James Comer said yesterday he's going to subpoena the family members. Why not? Don Jr. got subpoenaed. Why not him?
Yeah.
Number two, Eric Sherwin, who had a huge falling out with the family, evidently is queued up to go behind closed doors. They might even bring him out in public. He's the guy with the money. He's the one text messaging Hunter saying, you got to get this money from your dad, saying, well, you got to put this back into this account. He was the one moving money around who had a very good job within the administration.
And he had a fallout with the family?
Huge fallout with the family.
Well, is he speaking now?
So he is going to,
He'd be a
Eric
good guy
Sherwin's
to
role.
talk to.
Yeah, so he's going to be coming front and center as early as next week.
Okay.
Because this week we saw a whole bunch of numbers, and we need to have somebody explain, okay, $83,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
What was that for?
Well, if the media just approach this honestly, there is more smoking guns here than you will ever have in almost any case, and only one question directly from Joe Biden, and it came from our network, and Peter Doocy had to scale a bike rack to make it. How long?
So, I want to see where the witness goes. I want to see where the money goes. Obviously, of course, as I've said before, in full fairness, the Judiciary Committee does have a big hill to climb to make that connection, because these are a lot of people who have been in government for a long time that know how to cover their tracks. But if that can actually get cracked open and we can see who's on the take, who's doing what, and how much money it cost us, and how much of that's taxpayer money. I mean, this is stuff that I'd like to see, and really think that the American people should see. And for the leftoids who hear this, because I know that Amony resists, I don't know what he's resisting, but he resists, elevated my platform earlier today on the X app, because he tried to stall out my mentions, but I muted the conversation earlier. But one of the honest things I want to point out to the leftoids is there is enough conspiracy and belief in the conspiracy coming from the further right than even myself of the aisle that suggests that Donald Trump was installed and put there to put you guys into complacency, and he actually is one of them. And if we crack open these books, we see who got what kind of money. There is, although realistically I think it's a very slim chance, there is at least a chance that you'll pop open those books and we'll see that Trump was on the DNC payroll the whole time. I bet there's a bigger chance we find out that Marjorie Taylor Greene was on the DNC payroll, and maybe even George Santos, because he's a convenient punching bag nowadays. Maybe even Carrie Lake, who also says the right thing, just the right way, a little too perfectly at the right time. But that is what we have to say for Hunter. Let's shift gears and talk Trump. From the Daily Wire, judge issues protective order in Trump January 6 case. He has restrictions like every other criminal defendant. From Ryan Saavedra. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. A little bit more time spent on the Bidens, obviously, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. A federal judge presiding over former President Trump's prosecution in Washington, D.C. regarding alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election said on Friday he will not be treated any differently than any other defendant, and warned Trump that she will take every action to stop him from attempting to intimidate witnesses or taint the jury pool. Okay, well, a part of the problem is that, no, he's not going to be treated any differently than any other defendant that sat in front of you. You're going to go above and beyond to try to put that person in prison to make an example out of that person. And even if, I would almost fear that even if a jury comes back hung or with a not guilty verdict, I think Ms. Chutkan is going to try to do whatever she can to move this along. I don't know what she would have judicially to do so, but I would not be surprised to hear, hey, we've got to find something different here. Hey, can you guys go back and deliberate again, or something like that? Tanya Chutkan made the remarks during a hearing about an order sought by prosecutors to protect discovery evidence in the case. Chutkan repeatedly stated through the hearing that she will not let politics interfere in the case, except for the fact that it's completely a political case, and she considers his presidential campaign as a day job, no different than any other defendant. He's a criminal defendant, Judge Chutkan said. He's going to have restrictions like every other criminal defendant. She said that she would not allow him any greater or lesser latitude than any defendant in a criminal case. The protective order said in part that Trump must not have access to a smartphone or any device capable of photocopying, recording, or otherwise replicating sensitive materials when he's viewing the materials outside the defense counsel's presence. Which, I mean, that's standard. That's standard for anybody, by the way, other than the president himself, which Trump is not. Like, if you're watching this right now and you got top secret clearance for whatever reason for your job, or eyes only clearance even for that matter, and you were put in a position where you were supposed to go out and view documentation of the top secret or eyes only clearance levels, you would be under the same scrutiny. It always does make you question how Teixeira was able to get his hands on this stuff, but you know, there's part of me that doesn't that thinks that some of that was a setup in and of itself. Defense counsel must also ensure that all sensitive materials are collected and safeguarded when the defendant is no longer reviewing them, she added. The order was not a gag order, rather it was a measure to restrict Trump's ability to release discovery evidence to the public, which could give unindicted co-conspirators evidence about potential cases against them. But if they're unindicted, they don't have a case against them. The judge warned Trump's legal team about statements that he makes outside of the courtroom, which comes after he recently posted on Truth Social, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." Trump's team claims that the statement was directed at politicians that had nothing to do with the case, which, I mean, I believe, but also has been pointed out by other content creators, Donald Trump basically says what he's thinking at that moment. I do want to issue a general word of caution. I intend to ensure that the order administration of justice, in this case, as I would any other case, even arguably ambiguous statements by the parties or their counsel, she said, I caution you and your client to take special care in your public statements in this case. I will take whatever measures are necessary to protect the integrity of those proceedings. So, we do have some order, but not much. From Fox News, judge delivers mixed ruling on Trump protective order in 2020 election case. From Chris Pandolfo. Oh, by the way, I looked into that. I didn't realize that Ken Starr was dead, and then I remembered, of course, I remember the news story about it. But Mogwai asked, can we revive Ken Starr with the same tech we're using to keep Feinstein? I don't know. I think once you pass the threshold, I don't think you can come back. I forgot that Ken Starr died last year. Mogwai says, we don't have an impeachment yet. Marjorie Taylor Greene says, hold my beer! Sugar, did you say huh? Takes the phone back. Lindsay, how are you keep getting in here? The federal judge assigned to former President Trump's 2020 case has largely sided with Trump's defense attorneys on a protective order over the evidence, but handed prosecutors a win by broadening which materials is considered sensitive and what should be protected. Trump's lawyers returned to federal court in D.C. on Friday morning for their first hearing before U.S. District Judge Chutkan, who's overseeing the case. Chutkan heard arguments about the restrictions on evidence in the case in a court filing. It's coming. Prosecutors had urged for broad rulings barring Trump's lawyers from sharing sensitive materials with the former president, including witness testimony to the grand jury and recordings and transcripts of Trump's associates who spoke to prosecutors. Trump's attorneys countered that the government's request was too broad and infringed on Trump's First Amendment rights. Well, It also infringes on his Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, but hey, we won't go into that right now. With the technicality, of course, that the council gets access to it. In a close decision, Chutkan said that she was not persuaded that the government has shown all the information gathered in the case would fall under the protective order. She ruled only information designated as sensitive should be protected. However, she agreed with the government that every single person interviewed by prosecutors is a potential witness and is sensitive. The defendant has the right to free speech, but that right is not absolute. Bullshit. Chutkan said at the outset of the hearing, without a protective order, a party could release that info to the jury pool. Prosecutor Thomas Wyndham said Friday restrictions were necessary to prevent the improper dissemination of materials, including to the public. The defendant has set forth an intention to set forth any information that they deem informative, Wyndham told the judge. Defense has broadcast a strategy, and that is not to try this case in the courtroom, and Your Honor should address that, he said. Also, bullshit. They're trying to try it in courtroom, just not that courtroom. Chutkan agreed, but was hesitant to issue a blanket order. Trump's attorney John Lauro then argued the government's request was extraordinary. We're in uncharted waters here. We have a defendant running for president, and his opponent has the DOJ bringing the charges against him, Lauro added. The fact that he's tuning a political campaign has to yield to the orderly administration of justice, Chutkan replied. She suggested Trump might release evidence about former Vice President Pence's testimony, for example, to denigrate him as a witness. Look, he says what's on his mind immediately, but as much as I have made fun of Trump for not having a filter, I do think he knows better than that. Again, you don't get to be a billionaire by being stupid in court. Alright, moving on, we'll talk about Truth Social and the particular gentleman who may be the spark for the powder keg that is this country right now. From CNBC, Trump's Truth Social tipped FBI to man killed during arrest attempt for Biden threats. From Dan Mangan. The social media company owned by former President Trump in March tipped off the FBI about threats made to a Utah man who was fatally shot Wednesday by FBI agents as they attempted to arrest him for threatening to kill President Biden, NBC News reported. Truth Social notified the FBI after Craig Deliu Robertson posted a threat to kill Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg Jr., according to the senior law enforcement official who spoke to NBC. Bragg is prosecuting Trump for allegedly falsifying business records related to a 2016 hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Robertson was armed when FBI agents confronted him in his home in Provo on Wednesday and pointed his weapon at agents and did not respond to their commands before they fatally shot him, a senior official told NBC. I question that, by the way. Although, if somebody comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning, I may do the same. Agents were there to arrest him on federal criminal complaints, accusing him of making death threats against Biden. Bragg and FBI agents. Robertson was killed hours before Biden arrived in Utah for a visit. Again, that was a sending of a message. In a social media post on Sunday, Robertson wrote, I heard Biden is coming to Utah, and that's all that I can read from that. Robertson was described by FBI in that complaint as a white man, approximately 70 to 75, who was surveilled wearing a dark suit, later observed as having an AR-15 style rifle lapel pin attached, a white shirt, a red tie, and multicolored, possibly camouflage hat, bearing the word Trump on the front. His death is under investigation by the FBI's Inspection Division. We investigated ourselves and we found that we did nothing wrong. Now, as far as Truth Social goes, I will remind you, above all else, for social media, whether it is overly censorious Facebook, allegedly but no longer free speech Twitter, or Gab, or Parler, if anybody still uses that, or Truth Social for that matter, or Minds, or anything else where you feel that you are safe to say whatever it is that you want. You are not. And most of these CEOs would look at the possibility of either being sued by the government or criminally indicted by the government and prosecuted by the government as enough of an incentive to go back and, no matter how free speech that they claim to be and how much they are trying to make sure that you yourself go to their platform because they want you to speak on their platform. You always have to be careful with what you say on any social media whatsoever, because they will turn on you in a second when the government tells you to, or tells them to rather. There is no expectation of privacy on any social media anywhere. No matter how in your favor they claim to be. Man, the thunder rolls. I'm going to go have a quick look at the weather here. Because it is supposed to get nasty here. Oh, we are in the storm warning. Thunderstorms likely around 7:45. Storms may produce large hail and strong winds. It's a good thing I know a good body shop. Now, with what's happening to the Donald, and of course what is happening and what happened to Craig Robertson, we have this coming from the Daily Mail. Excuse me. More than half of Iowa Republicans think the U.S. is like Nazi Germany. Do you not see why this could be? Poll shows majority of GOP supporters agree with Trump's shocking claims after third indictment. From Rob Crilly, senior U.S. political reporter for DailyMail.com. I just kind of had a little panic attack on myself because while we were watching that last video, I muted the microphone so I could cough because, well, I got so violently sick last night it actually made my throat hurt. And I sat here and realized, well, I haven't seen Mogwai say anything for a while, but I hope that I didn't go the whole time after that video and keep the microphone off. That has happened before, by the way. Especially on a slow chat day. A majority of Republican voters in Iowa believe the pursuit of former President Trump by the FBI and the Department of Justice smacks of Nazi rule in the 30s, according to a new poll for DailyMail.com. Some 57% of respondents said they agreed with the statement. The lawlessness of the persecutions of President Trump and his supporters is reminiscent of Nazi Germany in the 30s. It comes after months of attacks on the FBI and the Department of Justice by Trump and his allies, who say he's the victim of an attempt to end his presidential campaign. I don't think it's about his presidential campaign anymore, by the way. I think they're looking to JFK him at this point. Donald, listen to me. If somebody offers your campaign a Lincoln convertible, they are not your friend. He was denied for the third time last week on 4 charges. He denied the allegations, and his campaign issued a blistering response drawing on the darkest days of the 20th century. The lawlessness of these persecutions of President Trump and his supporters is reminiscent of Nazi Germany in the 30s, the former Soviet Union, and other authoritarian, dictatorial regimes, it said on the Truth Social platform. The comparison was quickly condemned as offensive and inaccurate by Jewish groups. Because of course it was. But it was also, by the way, condemned as offensive and inaccurate by people who were persecuting fans of the Donald. Not necessarily him himself, although they do plenty of that on X, the Everything app. But people who were specifically trying to persecute their detractors. You know, like A-Money Resists, Andrew Wortman, who, when I disagreed with him about the language of the Fifth Amendment, decided to go back and quote tweet something else from my profile so that he could get his little simps back onto me. A convertible parade in Dallas. What could go wrong, says Mogwai. That's right. You might get the second season of The Umbrella Academy because of something like that. But the poll conducted by JL Partners in the immediate aftermath of the indictment shows how the parallel resonates with Republicans in Iowa, who have a crucial say in selecting the party's 2024 nomination. It is the first state to pick its preferred candidate next year, and the currents of the public opinion will be watched closely until then. The survey of 600 likely Republican caucus goers in Iowa was conducted from August 1st to 7th. The results carry a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. Only 28% disagreed with the comparison, driven largely by supporters of Tim Scott, the only black Republican senator. Half of his supporters say they did not agree with the Trump campaign statement. However, some 73% of Trump's own supporters say they agreed with the statement. Look, I don't support him and I agree with the statement. I think he's a moron, and I think his next election would probably bring us into that thing that our beanie-wearing friend likes to say over and over again. But I still think it's a political hit job that they have out on him. The chart, of course. 6 in 10 Iowa caucus goers feel that the recent indictments of Trump are similar to the conduct of Nazis. All 57% agree. Of all parties, Trump voters 73% agree. DeSantis voters 55% agree. Tim Scott voters 36% agree. And undecideds 51% agree. So, it looks like Vanna White has been replaced on upcoming episodes after contracting the pinko pox. Yeah, they're going to try and shove that down your throat for election year, next year, by the way. Can plastic even get COVID? So here's an interesting one. We're going to talk about the January 6th committee for just a moment. Fox News never aired Tucker Carlson's interview with former Capitol Police Chief, so Carlson did the interview again, and it's damning. I have not watched the interview. I've bookmarked it in the Discord because I want to watch it, but I have not watched it yet. From Joe McKinnon. Tucker's original interview with former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund has been kept under wraps at Fox News, notwithstanding recent footage leaks. Certain that the American public ought to hear Sund's insight to the January 6th protest, Carlson decided to interview him again, publishing the results on Thursday on Twitter. It's X, Glenn Beck. In the interview, Sund indicated that critical intelligence pertaining to possible threats ahead of the January 6th Selfie Fest was withheld from the Capitol Police, and that the absence of such intelligence was cited by the Congressional Sergeant at Arms, who were reporting to then House Speaker Pelosi and then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, the Turtle Man, at the time, as cause not to reinforce the Capitol in advance with the National Guard and federal assets. Between the intelligence failure and the waylaying of National Guard, Carlson speculated the U.S. Capitol Police may have been set up. Sund, an officer for 30 years, was head of the U.S. Capitol Police from 2019 through the protests, but resigned on January 7th, amid claims by Pelosi and others that there was a failure of leadership at the top. Speaking to Carlson, he once again detailed the apparent disparity between what was known in the days leading up to the protests by various intelligence agencies about possible threats and what was ultimately shared with the Capitol Police, stressing the delta was night and day. So, again, haven't listened to this yet, and I don't want to look into too many spoilers at this point. There's a memo from former acting defense secretary requiring personal authorization for the DC National Guard to employ a riot control agent and other tactics at January 6th. And my phone just told me about the severe thunderstorm warning too. But we're going to keep going, because I do want to get through the things I like and things that I hate. So if you haven't seen the interview yet and you are in the Discord, it is there in general chat. You can go back and check it out. That's where I'm going to be watching it from and seeing what it is they have to say. I do want to see what this guy has to say before I really comment too much on it, but the Blaze thought it was significant to bring up, so we're going to bring it up. Speaking of January the 6th, Investigate the Investigators January 6th committee ignored and manipulated evidence for narrative, GOP rep says. From Tim Pierce. A Republican congressman auditing the Democrat-driven investigation into January the 6th says the now disbanded House Select Committee manipulated its findings to craft a political narrative. Yeah, we knew that from the moment that they announced the committee. Barry Loudermilk, chairman of the subcommittee on oversight for the Committee on House Administration, received a request from McCarthy to audit the January 6th committee's findings after gathering piles of evidence. Documents, depositions, videos, and other information uncovered by the January 6th committee, Loudermilk says there are conspicuous gaps in the records. Basically, all they did after spending $18.5 billion was to come out with a manifesto against former President Trump, trying to tie Donald Trump to the attack on the Capitol. Loudermilk said in an interview with the Daily Wire. That was their narrative. Everything that they did appears to be just to come up with that narrative. Yeah, everybody knew that. The Georgia Republican requested that all of January 6th committee records from the former chairman, Benny Thompson. What Loudermilk received showed how January 6th committee omitted key facts about the riot in its final report. The most shocking discovery that Loudermilk made, he said, was evidence that showed that there were some plainclothes law enforcement officers among the rioters who were encouraging people to go into the Capitol. No, we were told that that didn't happen, that it was just a grassroots thing, and the only person that told people to go into the Capitol was Donald Trump, but he was using an evil dog whistle. He said the committee also manipulated evidence and made false claims, in one instance targeting him. The report says Loudermilk gave a tour of the U.S. Capitol to a man later accused of joining the Selfie Fest. The man took a tour of the Capitol with the Representative Barry Loudermilk, during which he took pictures of hallways and staircases, the report says. The Georgia congressman says that's false. Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger told the committee that while Loudermilk did lead a tour of several people around some of the Capitol Hill offices and hallways, they never entered the Capitol building. In addition, Loudermilk said he found little about the security around the Capitol building that day. The committee investigated it. It assigned its blue team to cover that part of the investigation into the riot, but Loudermilk says that little evidence from the blue team's research was included in the files he received, which we talked about yesterday. But you can't let the truth get in the way of a good narrative. Speaking of presidential politics, we will finish that out with this. From The Blaze, Woody Harrelson sports RFK Jr. hat while posing for photo with the presidential candidate's celebrity wife. From Alex Nitzberg. Cheryl Hines, the wife of RFK Jr., posed herself posing with Woody Harrelson, who can be seen in the shot sporting a Kennedy 2024 hat. Great seeing you, Woody, Hines wrote, adding several heart emojis, as well as the hashtag Friends, Hats, and RFK Jr. The comments were mixed. Woody, he's absolutely lost it. I thought he was better than that. Woody, you're smarter than that. I guess they were right about impaired judgment from smoking too much weed, someone else commented. Like, I legitimately thought that Harrelson was a Trumper. honestly. So I'm not entirely surprised by this, and I'm not 100% sure why other people are, if I'm being completely honest. While Kennedy and Marianne Williamson are both running against Joe Biden for the Democrats' presidential nomination, polling indicates Biden has an enormous lead over his competitors and is positioned to coast to a primary victory. It's the incumbent effect. And the paid shills, of course. But, of course, many people are coming out and saying that Woody Harrelson has canceled himself by doing this. But, again, I'm pretty sure I thought he was a Trump guy in 2016, so I don't know. He still keeps getting roles. Oh, the rain started. Alright, on the Fifth Circuit from Fox News. Fifth Circuit deals blow to federal gun statute used in Hunter Biden's case. Oh, well, we're putting a president's kid into prosecution for this. Hey, let's just strike this whole thing down, shall we? From Chris Pandolfo. The Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit on Wednesday voided a federal law that prevents unlawful drug users from possessing a firearm. The statute, 18 U.S.C. Section 922, Paragraph G, Subparagraph 3, bars anyone who is an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substance, including marijuana, from possessing a gun. Violators can face up to 10 years in prison. However, a 3-judge panel citing the Supreme Court's landmark gun rights decision last year unanimously found the state statute unconstitutional as it applied to defendant Patrick Daniels. Daniels, an admitted habitual marijuana user, was arrested in April 2022 after police searched his car and found marijuana and 2 loaded firearms. He was convicted in July 2022 and sentenced to nearly 4 years and 3 years of probation, a conviction a Fifth Circuit panel has now thrown out. So, this is the right decision, by the way. Unless there is an indication that you are dangerous on a certain drug. As long as you are not using the firearm while you are high on angel dust, well, angel dust, of course, being illegal is a different law altogether, but as long as you're not putting other people in danger to this, I mean, your drug use should have no bearing on any of this. Especially if it's weed, and especially if you're in a place where weed is legal. Even if it is illegal on a federal statute. This is the right decision. The timing, I question. Because right now, this protects Hunter Biden from going to prison for something that many of the rest of us did. And yeah, you shouldn't have to worry. Especially with so much decriminalization and legalization in so many areas, that if you are exercising your Second Amendment rights, you could just go out to prison if some cop basically doesn't like you and knows that you smoke a little bit of the wacky tobacco, knows that you have guns. But this does seem oddly timed as well, and I mean, I'm not going to let that go either, so. But, right decision overall. Absolutely. A little bit of foreign news for you. Corruption concerns prompt Ukraine to fire all regional military recruitment chiefs. And if Volodymyr Zelensky is approving you of corruption, you're pretty effing corrupt. From Reuters. Volodymyr Zelensky announced the dismissal of all the heads of the country's regional military recruitment centers on Friday amid concerns about corruption. Going to be watching the internet icon here because it's getting bad out there. Zelensky said a review of Ukraine's recruiting centers revealed signs of professional abuse, ranging from illegal enrichment to transporting draft-eligible men across the border despite a wartime ban. The system should be System should be run by people who know exactly what war is, and why cynicism and bribery during war is treason. Kiev made a crackdown on a graft a key priority as it fends off Russia's full-scale invasion and seeks membership into the European Union. Zelensky said top general Valery Zaluzhny would be responsible for implementing the decision that the new candidates for the post would be vetted by Ukraine's domestic security service, the SBU. So, again, when this guy tells you that you're too corrupt to serve as a recruiter for the military, man, you are corrupt. Either that, or you might go back out and say something. Since I know that this was important to Mr. Scott, we're going to talk about this for a second. From the Associated Press, a judge sends FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried to jail. Says crypto mogul tampered with witnesses. From Larry Newmister, FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried left a federal courtroom in handcuffs on Friday when a judge revoked his bail after concluding that the fallen crypto whiz had repeatedly tried to influence witnesses against him. I'm going to get a refresh on this just to make sure that I'm not about to die. But it looks like we are still going to be good. Bankman-Fried drooped his head as Judge Lewis Kaplan explained at length why he believed the California man had repeatedly pushed the boundaries of his $250 million bail package to a point that Kaplan could no longer ensure the protection of the community, including a prosecutor's witness, unless the 31-year-old was behind bars. After the hearing ended, Bankman-Fried took off his suit jacket and tie and turned his watch and other personal belongings over to his lawyer. The clanking of handcuffs could be heard as his hands were cuffed in front of him and then led out of the courtroom by U.S. Marshals. Yeah, but I mean, this isn't about anything that he did in trying to influence the election. It's what he did after the fact. It was a spectacular fall for a man who prosecutors say portrayed himself as a savior of the crypto industry, as he testified before Congress and hired celebrities including Larry David, Tom Brady, and Stephen Curry to promote his business. Prosecutors said Bankman-Fried stole billions of dollars in FTX customers' deposits to fund his businesses and speculative venture investments, to make charitable donations, and spend tens of millions of dollars on illegal campaign donations to Democrats and Republicans in an attempt to buy influence over crypto regulation in Washington. That's not entirely what he did either, but that's what the mainstream narrative is going to tell you. Mogwai says everything is okay until you see Hillary Clinton on a bike outside your window, screaming how she'll get your little dog too. Nice. We are at the 143 mark, and we still got things I like and things that I hate. The carryover from yesterday, by the way. So, let's call it there. I know we've still got a bunch of stuff left over. There's some stuff that's going to be dropped from here on Monday, unfortunately. But we're going to finish out not with Twitter trending tonight. We're actually going to finish out with things I like and things that I hate, because of a time constraint yesterday, we were not able to get that because I had a previous engagement. So going back to things that I like and things that I hate, we talked about Dennis Quaid's gospel album. We talked about Johnny Hardwick and what he did for our culture. Let's talk now about Florida and the districts actually complying with the law. Florida district bars trans teachers from using preferred pronouns in bathrooms to comply with state law. From Marlene Lenthang. Comply with state law. A major Florida school district has issued guidance that will bar transgender employees from sharing their preferred pronouns and force trans students and staff members to use group restrooms that follow their biological sex at birth. Orange County Public Schools, the fourth largest district in Florida with about 209,000 students, at 210 schools released the new guidance for the 2023 and 24 academic year on Monday. The district's Deputy General Counsel issued a memo. Yeah, you can hear it on my... I bet you can, because I can hear it through the headphones. And I'm guessing that there's a south-facing wind, too, because it's probably hitting right into my window. Under House Bill 1069, students or employees, sex is defined by birth sex, the hormones and genitals present at birth, not the gender they identify with, the memo said. As a result, the transgender employees or contractors may not provide a personal title or pronoun to a student which does not correspond to the employee's or contractor's biological sex at birth, the memo said. The law also mandates that employees and contractors may not ask a student to provide his or her preferred pronoun, title, or pronoun, the memo said. So, one of the things that Orange County is doing, because as from what I understand, that's the Orlando area, is they're trying to extremely comply with this to make it look almost demonic to this. Now, as far as the adult goes, a man walking in a dress that presents as a woman, anybody's going to ask questions and anything. It's like, you guys know I'm friends with Rachel Nix, who, to the untrained eye on the first glance, especially like now compared to when I first met her, you would not believe that this person used to be a boy. She is transitioning very, 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 very smoothly. And I've always called Rachel her, she and her. I know what Rachel's birth name is. I don't use it. There's no reason for me to do, because I never met that person. So on the adult side of it, especially, and there are things that go around that, but what I like about this is the fact that they are pushing this in and not allowing the teachers to ask preferred pronouns of the students, which is where all of this came from to begin with teachers pushing the pronoun ideology on students, even if they don't believe that they are one gender or the other, or the opposite, or anything else like that. And again, I know they're taking it to the extreme to make a point, because that's what they're trying to do, to try to win points in their favor to turn Florida back over into a deep, deep blue stronghold. But in doing so, they got to the point. Don't push your sexuality on little kids and ask them to partake in your sexuality. Good God, listen to that go. Other things that I like: Budweiser tents practically empty at crowded Sturgis motorcycle rally. From Courtney Wheel. Those who flocked to Sturgis for the annual motorcycle rally this year steered clear of the Budweiser tents. Video evidence suggests the 83rd annual Sturgis motorcycle rally is currently in full swing, with tens of thousands of bikers and other enthusiasts from all over the world gathering off to show off their ride. Yes, dentists are having their motorcycles trailered in to Sturgis so they can get on and pretend to ride around for 3 days. Honor members of the U.S. military and otherwise enjoy a slice of good old-fashioned gas-powered Americana. Though attendance seems to be down slightly this year compared to the 5-year average, Sturgis, a town of about 7,000 residents, is still bustling with more than 250,000 vehicles counted between last Friday, when the event opened, and Tuesday. The events last until this Sunday. The popular rally draws many high-profile corporate sponsors, including Budweiser, for this year. Budweiser made a big show its enthusiasm for the rally and its attendees. Not only are the banners emblazoned with the Budweiser logo spotted throughout Sturgis, but the iconic Budweiser Clydesdales helped kick off the rally by headlining the opening ceremonies last Friday. Despite those efforts, rally attendees have slaked on their thirst elsewhere, as the Budweiser tents and booths stand nearly empty in 2 TikTok videos making the rounds on social media. The video shows a fairly impressive setup that might be expected for a brand like Budweiser, an official sponsor of the event, offering shade, refreshing beverages, and some official Budweiser merch, but almost no patrons appear to care. And that's the way to do it. Just like I said, you don't have to burn a display, you don't have to throw a brick, you don't have to make a threat, just stop buying. if you're dissatisfied with what it is that they're doing. And Sturgis did the right thing by not banning Budweiser or Bud Light. Just like, and I stood with Garth Brooks on this too when he and Trisha Yearwood said that they were going to continue to serve Budweiser at their bars. That is fine. There are still people who will want, like Mr. Scott said earlier in the stream, who will still want to enjoy an Anheuser-Busch product. For Mr. Scott, it was the Anheuser-Busch Peach, the Busch Light Peach rather. But there's still going to be people who want to enjoy an Anheuser-Busch product in spite of the culture war going against it. So the right thing to do, of course, is to offer these things and then take stock of the fact and adjust your stock accordingly when people don't buy them. But still have the offering available. Sturgis did the exact right thing for this event. 100%. And again, it still shows that without banning it, people still don't want to buy it. Am I gonna die? I can hear the wind right now. That's what's scaring me the most. Waiting to see if there's gonna be something like something knocks a tree into a internet line or something. All right, other things that I like. You guys know I love private charity. Morgan Wallen, Jason Aldean, and more performing in concert benefiting Covenant School at Grand Ole Opry. Yes, these people need a benefit. They absolutely do. All proceeds will go to the Covenant School Community Fund to support mental health and more. From Caleb Wethington. Several country music artists are hosting a benefit concert for the Covenant School at the Grand Ole Opry on Monday night. The Covenant Night at the Grand Ole Opry House will be hosted by Storm Warren and featured a 2-hour concert featuring Ann Wilson, Brandon Heath, Jason Aldean, Jeffrey Steele, Lee Bryce, Maddie and Tay, Morgan Wallen, Need to Breathe, Old Dominion, Zach Williams, and special guests. All proceeds will go to the Covenant School Community Fund to support mental health and more. And even with big names like this coming out, making the appearance, and really helping out the community, we're still not going to get the manifesto. For reasons that you know why at this point. I think I have two more things. Two more things that I like, and we'll move into things that I hate for the night. From Reuters. Target is sued by investor over backlash to LGBTQI, MAGI, XTBY, AEIOU, sometimes Y merchandise. From Jody Godoy. A conservative legal organization sued Target on Tuesday on behalf of an investor, saying the retailer misrepresented the adequacy of its risk monitoring when customer backlash over LGBTQI, RA, MIGI, XTBY, AEIOU, sometimes Y-themed merchandise caught it by surprise. America First Legal filed a lawsuit in Florida federal court on behalf of investor Brian Craig against Target chief executive Brian Cornell and the company's board of directors. America First is a nonprofit group headed by Stephen Miller, a former advisor to ex-President Trump. Now, here's what I don't like about this. The fact that they're using America First Legal, although that's probably the only person who would take up the case, does make this look like this is a partisan targeting. But the fact that Craig is actually coming in and saying, hey, I invested in you and you are putting my money at risk willfully, that's the reason I put this on things that I like. When you go back and you hit these companies in their pocketbook, now, first and foremost, the first thing you're doing is taking your dollars out of their profit pool by not going to them, which is what Anheuser-Busch is going through right now. Target is kind of slacking back off of this, and they're starting to come back into the foray of the Good Boys Club again. I don't know, I still haven't gone there since the whole debacle. But I know a lot of people are starting to ease back off of that and starting to go back to business as normal for Target. But as far as this, like, when an investor comes in and says, you legitimately said you don't care when people stop going in there, you're putting my profits at risk too. When all these companies do these kinds of things, they don't just affect their own CEOs, their own board. There are people who put their retirements into Target, people who put their investments, people who put their wealth into Target, and expect a return. So good on him. I wish he would have picked a different legal team, because I know that the court and the defense can come back in and say, oh, it's America first, it's a political hatchet job. But, I mean, good on you for making the effort at least. And the last one on things that I like. From the Blaze, Zoom finally asked employees to return to the office after the pinko pox. Still requires just 2 days in the office per week. I don't like the fact that they're forcing people to go back to work, especially that it's Zoom. This is here literally for the irony. Zoom is saying that you cannot work from home. The sponsor of work from home is saying you cannot no longer completely work from home. You guys see the irony in this, right? Andrew Chapados reporting. Zoom, the video calling application, has finally asked some employees to return to in-office work for the first time since the pinko pox-related lockdowns, so many politicians force citizens to work remotely. Zoom is requiring employees who live within 50 miles of their office to return to in-person employment at least 2 days a week. Its main headquarters is located in San Jose. We believe that a structured hybrid approach, meaning employees that live near an office need to be on site 2 days a week to interact with their teams, is most effective for Zoom. Which, I mean, the irony just doesn't stop. A spokesperson said in a statement to Insider, as a company, we are the better position to use our own technologies, continue to innovate, and support our global customers. So, again, and it's the employer's choice as to whether or not they actually, how they conduct their business. It's just, there is such a level of irony to Zoom being the one to tell you, hey, you got to come back to work. You can't work from home anymore. Let's do some things that I hate. From the Post-Millennial. Reporter who got driver suspended for liking meme suggests NASCAR fans are toothless hicks. The fact that this even happened, I hate. And then the fact that this guy comes out and does this as well. Thomas Stevenson reporting. Daniel McFadden, journalist that reported on Noah Gragson for liking a meme that led to the NASCAR driver being suspended, has come under fire for liking a post that called fans an angry with the action toothless hicks. In response to the suspension of Gragson, many NASCAR fans took to X to vent their frustrations when one person defending McFadden reporting calling NASCAR fans toothless hicks. McFadden liked the tweet. Sarah Higdon, who I have interacted with, mutual follow for me, says, wait, if this guy's advocating for people to get canceled for liking a post, I wonder what Front Stretch thinks of him liking a satirical tweet, making fun of their chore audience. The original post came from user HKD and only had one like. The post said, "You did great, Daniel. Don't let these toothless hicks with nothing better to do than watch cars drive in circles get to you." The only like was from McFadden. "Thank you for having integrity and morals, Daniel," HKD said. McFadden faced backlash for reporting Gregson for liking a meme of George Floyd pasted on the face of the crab from The Little Mermaid. And that is, for those of you on the audio platform, you can't see it, but it is Sebastian from Little Mermaid with the face of George Floyd saying, "Under the knee." Honestly, I think this is in poor taste. But I will defend to the death your right to push it around and share it. I've seen a lot poorer taste memes that I, again, support the people's ability to share around. I have seen memes in such poor taste that I've asked the original posters if everything is okay at home. And I still support the right of people to share them around. So, boo to you, Daniel, for reporting this, and boo to you for thinking that anybody who disagrees with you is a toothless hick. Some other things that I hate today. Robot security deployed to Cleveland shopping district with thermal cameras and license plate reader. Sam loves hugs and selfies. Big Brother is here, folks. The Cleveland, Ohio district of Crocker Park has enlisted the help of a security robot for 24-hour crime monitoring and emergency response. According to ABC News 5 Cleveland, the robot is a 5'1", 420-pound robo-security guard with 360-degree cameras, thermal imaging, and a license plate reader. Because of course it is. Hello, Channel 5 News. My name is Sam. Thank you so much for coming to meet with us today, the robot said to a local news crew. The robot also has an emergency response button to allow citizens to speak to a person monitoring the machine's activity. There is not an actual person inside the robot. Which, like that, I'm okay with. Having something out on patrol where you can hit a button and have somebody respond to a medical emergency or a fire or something like that. But this, this is Big Brother. This is pre-crime, and this is how you get to RoboCop, which I have not seen, but I understand the concept of. Sam has an actual security button on the top of him that you can press, said Stacy Schmidt, VP of Marketing for Stark Enterprises. Because of course it's Stark Enterprises. Why would it be anything else? Anytime you need a real-life human, there is a human behind the eyes of Sam. You can actually call their attention and get a real voice of a human who can talk to you at any point, and so that you can get someone's assistance right away, Schmidt added. Now, I will urge people to boycott this. They won't. The Soccer Mom America will look at this and say, we are keeping our kids safe, but this is a dangerous step, and one that should not be entertained by anything. So, any normal person should look at this and say, no thanks. Don't vandalize it. Do not vandalize it. And watch yourself too when you're walking around it, because of course it's looking to go and bust you too. Some other things that I hate. This piece of crap. And they do this all the time, by the way. The anti-truckers. The climate alarmists. David Zipper tweets out, I spent much of this year learning about car bloat, the process through which smaller vehicles are being replaced by increasingly massive SUVs and trucks. What I've learned, huge cars are terrible for society, often in ways that are hidden. And by the way, the climate agenda does this like once a year. They don't pull out the same image every time, but they do this like once a year. And for those of you on the audio platform, we are looking first at a 1981 Toyota Tacoma mini truck, two-wheel drive. So it's actually got about the ground clearance of an average sedan, short bed, single cab. This entire truck is no more than 3.5 feet tall at the top of the cab. And parked behind it, for the comparison, for the photo opportunity, is I can kind of see the headlights on this, but it's coming from its side panel. I want to say a 2007. I know it's like 04 to 10. No, 04 to 08, rather, body style. F350, non-dual, F350, long bed, crew cab, 4-wheel drive, with an FX4 off-road package that gives it an extra lift on it and a slightly bigger set of tires from factory. These vehicles are not the same in any stretch of the imagination. And David Zipper then comes off and says, first, some basic info. 80% of U.S. car sales are now trucks and SUVs. Europe is behind but catching up. Models keep expanding. Example, the 2023 F-150 is 800 pounds heavier and 7 inches taller than in 1991, which is a lie, by the way. I had a 91 F-150. And I've got a 2014 now, and I've been test driving brand new ones. The brand new ones, the 2023, is the same height, same length, and 200 pounds lighter, 300 pounds lighter rather, than my 2014 because of the aluminum body. But same height, same length, because we're going same engine, package to package, 300 pounds lighter. And my 2014 is slightly longer. It's an inch longer because they're both extended cab. But it's an inch longer because when they did the swinging rear doors, they have mechanicals there that weren't there in the 91 when you did an extended cab. But same length otherwise, an inch longer. And my 91 is 400 pounds heavier. Well, was, rather, I don't have it anymore, but 400 pounds heavier than my 2014 curb weight. Same engine, actually same displacement too. Same engine, 5-liter V8, 4-wheel drive, extended cab short bed. And it's 400 pounds heavier than my 2014. So that statement is a bald-faced lie, flat out. And then they say EVs can make the problem worse due to huge batteries. Now, one of the things I will say, not for taller, but for length, and possibly maybe a weight difference there, is that in 91, an extended cab was rare, and a crew cab and a half-ton was completely non-existent. Now a crew cab truck is the norm, and in fact you have to hunt to get a single cab or an extended cab. So I will give him that aspect of it. But the only way he's getting 7 inches taller is if he's taking a 2-wheel drive against a 4-wheel drive. That is literally the only way. And then he talks about the weight differences and the average weight difference and everything else. And one thing I will point out to that also is the reason that you're starting to get a weight average increase is because with the reliability and the mass production of diesel engines, which typically get much, much better fuel economy, by the way, even in a heavier vehicle. The 3/4 ton and the 1 ton, which up until very, very recently were the only models that offered a diesel engine, started becoming more common in the mix and bringing the average weight back up, because obviously if you can tow heavier packages, heavier trailers, and heavier bed loads, your truck has got to be heavier. Car bloat makes cars more expensive. Big, heavy cars can be sold for more money. That's why Stellantis CEO Sergio Marchionne made a famous pivot away from sedans in 2016, a move other car makers followed. Well, no, your crossovers are still cheap pieces of crap that lose their value as soon as they come off the lot, because it's still the same unibody piece of garbage that the sedan was. But again, when we're going back to trucks, yes, Full-frame vehicles hold their value a lot longer, which means that they're typically more expensive coming out of the gate. I can right now, by the way, just partially because of inflation and partially because of the used car inventory, which is starting to catch back up. But I can go out and sell my pickup that I put 30,000 miles on and I bought 4 years ago for $16,500. I can sell my truck right now for more than I bought it for. Not much. I think on average you can expect to get $16,700 out of that truck right now with 130,000 miles on it. And I bought it for $16,500 with 92,000. But yeah, in a unibody vehicle, you're not going to get that on there. They rattle apart too much, and once the subframe goes out of it, they're junk. They're not worth replacing. But some more on vehicle news. Most cars. I put this on things that I hate because this is where people were going legitimately, always, when they say, hey, I don't ever have to pay for gas again in my EV. So go get a Tesla. Just sell your gas vehicle and get an EV. Insider reports most cars still cost more to charge than to fill up with gas. From Alexa St. John. It's not yet cheaper to charge many electric vehicles than it would be with fuel to fuel their gas-powered counterparts with gas, a new study found. By the way, it's not going to get better. As much as they tell you you're never going to have to pay for gas again, it's not going to get better. Because enterprising people are going to go out there and make sure to lobby the government to keep those costs up and the taxes and things up on the charge to make sure that you still have limited mobility. It's not going to get better. The cost of filling up at a gas station versus plugging in and whether or not those two match up largely depends on the segment and price, according to a study from Anderson Economic Group published on Tuesday. Trucks cost about the same to fuel and charge, while entry and mid-level cars and SUVs cost more to charge at home. And in public, they do to fuel at gas stations, the group found luxury cars and SUVs fall somewhere in the middle. The study is based on the latest information on gas and residential electricity prices, commercial charging prices, and tax rates on fuel and electric cars, fuel economy details, and more to compare the cost of fueling versus charging for 100 miles of driving. I mean, for 100 miles of driving, it's going to cost me $20. And I've got a half-ton pickup with a V8. And I'm taking city driving into account too. If we're going out on the interstate, like if I'm just throwing a little bit to see how far how much it'll take me to get to 100 miles, I bet you I could get 100 miles on $10 on the interstate. Your move, Evie. But I can go right now, and I mean, it's expensive right now because gas just spiked, but I could probably go fill my truck for $110 right now. I could probably fill it for $90 right now because I've actually got some gas in it right now. But from empty, fill it for about $110 right now. And then never see a gas station again for 2 months. Unless I take a day trip somewhere or something. Like go to my dad's or something. But if I'm just going back and forth to work, I wouldn't see a gas station again for 2 months. From full. I don't know if the EV is going to be able to do that, especially not on $110. The silver lining for this, and I did want to put some fairness to this from Clean Technica, solving middle of nowhere EV charging could be profitable because, again, the enterprising marketing people are going to come out here, and where there's a market and there's a demand, they're going to fill it. That is one thing to keep in mind always about demand, is where there's a market, there's somebody with a bunch of money who can go fill that demand and make a whole bunch of money back off of you. From Jennifer Sensiba. I spend a lot of time thinking about the future of EV charging infrastructure. Every EV driver wonders about this a little, and we probably all have ideas about where a station should go based on our local knowledge, but I'm a little weird about this. Instead of worrying about what 99% of EV drivers need, I also think about the little edge cases that probably won't be addressed until sometime after 2030. Things like rural roads hardly anyone drives on, towing campers into the backcountry, and trips for EVs with smaller batteries might seem unimportant. After all, these are rare and only a few people do, right? But at the same time, no one goes to buy an internal combustion engine car and asks for 99% of a car. They want the car to do 100% of the things they expect. And they want unexpected needs to be met as often as the vehicle's design permits. And maybe some of what the design wasn't built for via the aftermarket. Or just doing it as I do. So there's your silver lining as far as the EV thing goes, is the fact that if you do want to get one of these things, and I don't blame you if you do, again, I've always said buy what you want. Or can afford, depending. But if you do want one of these things, and make it easier for you to go take it out west or something. Last couple of things that I hate. Some propaganda for you. From Axios. I'm going to skip this one. Just because it was supposed to be on things that I like. But from Axios. The U.S. is averaging 2 mass shootings per day so far this year, from Jacob Knudsen. The U.S. is currently on pace to meet or surpass the previous record for most mass shootings in a year, which was set in 2021 with a total of 690 according to Gun Violence Archive data. So far this year, the U.S. has seen an average of 2 mass shootings every day for a running total of 419. At this point in 2021, 401 mass shootings had occurred, and that year overall had a daily average of about 1.9 mass shootings. GVA defines a mass shooting as an incident in which at least 4 people are shot and either killed or injured, not including the shooter. Already, over 25,000 people have died from gun violence this year, and there are still 153 days left in 2023. Man, when they compile statistics like this sure sounds like it's a bunch of white Christian men that are running out and going into schools and slaughtering people en masse, right? Right? Well, no, that's not the case. At all. Now, number one, I'm not going to tell you where the majority of these mass shootings happen, but I will say that it is a handgun problem, not a rifle problem. And the reason I'm not going to say where the majority of these things happen is because YouTube has TOS, and they really, really frown on racism. Like, a lot. Every time one of these moron kids comes out and says, oh, hey, well, we've had this many mass shootings and look at this. Now, when they talk about mass shootings and the fact that ABC only covers it if it's a straight white Christian male, or in one case a straight white atheist female, but we'll never see the manifesto, is they want you to believe that every mass shooting is Parkland, is Covenant. They want you to believe that every one of these mass shooting events is Uvalde or Sandy Hook. Straight white Christian male goes in with a rifle and shoots a bunch of defenseless kids. But that's not the case. In fact, the majority of mass shooting events are typically gang warfare and involve handguns because they are easily concealable in the commission of a crime. The mass shootings I described before that everybody wants you to associate with this number are increasingly rare. And also, 25,000 people have died from gun violence this year. Not all in these mass shootings, of course, because, as usual, for year over year over year over year in a row, the leading cause of gun death in this country is suicide. But they don't tell you that part. So the propaganda, again, they're going to come back out and try to tell you that this is like, it's Parkland every single day in this country, and it's not. And the last thing that I hate coming to us, first in an X, and then in the article that goes with it from Reuters, scientists are experimenting with larva fat to replace butter. They soak insects in water and then mush them with a blender before centrifuges separate butter-like substance, which the team then uses to bake with. You will own nothing, you will be happy, you will eat the bugs. Reading from Reuters. Waiter, there's a fly in my waffle. Belgian researchers try out insect butter. No thank you, I will get my butter from a cow. I don't even like the stuff that comes from a soybean oil, which most of you shouldn't eat anyway because seed oils suck. From Jakub Riha. Belgian waffles may be about to become more environmentally friendly. Oh, Jesus. Guess who didn't pre-read this article? Scientists at Ghent University in Belgium are experimenting with larva fat to replace butter in waffles, cakes, and cookies, saying using grease from insects is more sustainable than dairy produce. Clad in white aprons, the researchers soak black soldier fly larvae in a bowl of water and put it in a blender to create a smooth grayish dollop, then use a kitchen centrifuge to separate out insect butter. Or, you can just take heavy cream straight out of the goddamn cow and put it in a mason jar and shake it, instead of using all this lab equipment to come back out and try to get this. And then you'll have some buttermilk for your pancakes when you're done. There are several positive things about using insect ingredients, said Dylan Zampa Sosa, who oversees the research. They're more sustainable because insects use less land than cattle. They're more efficient at converting feed, and so they also use less water to produce butter, Zampa Sosa said as she held off a freshly baked insect butter cake. According to the researchers, consumers notice no difference when a quarter of the milk butter in a cake is replaced with larva fat. However, they report an unusual taste when it gets to 50-50 and say they would not want to buy the cake. So basically, when they come back out and do this, it's going to be, they're going to try to hide it from you and not put the ingredients out there. You're going to have to start reading your labels again. Insect food has high levels of protein, vitamins, fiber, and minerals, and scientists elsewhere in Europe are looking at it as a more environmentally friendly and cheap alternative to other types of animal products. Now, I'm going to say the exact same thing that I said about the EVs. If this is something that you want to bring to market and see if the market will bear something like this, be my guest. Prove me wrong. Prove me that everybody wants to go out and do this. But bring it to the market, just like with Bud Light too. That's the other one. Bring it to the market and see how many people buy it, especially number one, when you're transparent about what it is and transparent about the taste. Like, don't try to hide it in cakes and crap. Actually tell us what you're putting into this and see how many people actually buy it. I will always tell you, the free market is the most effective way to know what the people want and what's actually going to be successful. I have no problem with you guys bringing this to market. I'm not going to buy it. I grew up in dairy country. My milk, my cheese, my butter come from a cow. And a lot of people out here are going to be in the same boat. But absolutely, bring it to market. See how it goes. I want to see a cost comparison, a flavor comparison, and a marketability comparison. Because I don't think that you can get this sold without banning its competitor. And with that, we're done. So I got a few more stories that we've got to do out probably on Monday, because I do have something going on this weekend that I can't sit back and do a makeup stream. I thought about it, but I'm like, no. What I'm doing is this weekend is much more important. So, unfortunately, I can't come back and do that. But yeah, we'll be doing. I am going to be taking some of this off of the stack because it's fallen out of relevance at this point. Some of it's going to stay, but we'll be talking about more of this on Monday. Plus, whatever else they try to jam down our throats over the weekend, because there's going to be a lot of that. But let's throw some outro music up and head out of here. Alright, I survived the rainstorm. It didn't blow the power out. We stayed online. I think we stayed online the whole time. Let's go double check. Had a few people come in at the end. I'm always happy to see that. But we're going to head out of here for the night. Thank you, everybody who came by, chatted, hung out in the live chat. We'll be back here on Monday for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. We'll see what pops up over the weekend, what people have to say. And as always, if you like what you hear, you can catch us back on demand if you couldn't catch the whole show on the audio platforms, on Spotify. If you want to listen on the go, Contemporary with J. Edgar, go check that out. Or check out the Discord for other links and other places where you can find us and have a good conversation. Or if you want to contribute to the show, that's the best place to do it as well. Put up your links. I do vet everything, even if it comes from a green check verified source, but I only use green check verified stuff. But I will check out your article and see if I can find it on a green check verified source material. So come back and join us. We will see you here next time. Take care. Have a good night. Hug your friends. Get some, well, it's probably too late for dinner for most of you, especially if you're on the East Coast. But have a great night. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the heat if you have it. And, well, play some video games if you're stuck in the rain. Take care. Good night. God bless. Stick around if you're on Twitch for the raid. And until next time, I'm J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary.